Thank you, Mr. Polis. I'd like to start with some questions regarding the Antrim situation, if I may. And I'd like to have a better understanding of how exactly the error occurred. And so, and what I want to specifically drive at is your statement about how if the logic and, is it error, logic and error test?
Logic inaccuracy test.
Logic and accuracy test. If that had been run, that this would have been caught. And so is it correct to state that the error that occurred in the unofficial results didn't occur at the tabulators, but occurred when the information was taken to the centralized location and uploaded off of the memory cards that were in the tabulators? Is that correct?
Thank you, Chair McBroom. So the first thing that I will say is my information is we did not, Dominion did not support Antrim County. We did not program their election. We don't have a copy of their database. We don't have any copies of what happened there. But what I do know, I will walk through. So from my understanding, the county originally signed off, finalized, and tested their programming. And I believe that they did a public logic and accuracy test, but I believe they did it in September after the original programming. Once that was completed, my best guess at this time is that they sent their ballots off to be printed. At some point in October, they were required to add a contest on ballots that I believe affected 3 of their 18 tabulators. I believe it was a school board contest. New programming was provided to the county, along with instructions to update all 18 of their tabulators. This is where the first human error occurred. Antrim is a small county, as you know, in the Upper Peninsula, and election officials forgot to update all of their 18 tabulators' memory cards. This type of human error is mitigated when the counties can afford to arrange for on-site support, for example, but as my understanding was, there wasn't any on-site technical support in Antrim County. This type of human error, I should point out, of election programming happens from time to time. And it's the entire purpose of why we have public logic and accuracy testing. Because this process, which is a requirement in states, including Michigan, the test entails zeroing every tabulator that's going to be used in an election. Officials in front of public view feed a known test deck of ballots into the tabulator. Once they're done that, they close the poll, they print the results tape, they upload the results into the database, and then they ensure the results that are being reported are in fact the expected results. It's specifically designed to be used in a public forum. So at the conclusion of this process, once it's verified, the tabulators then are re-zeroed, sealed, and made ready for election deployment. So performing that step would have caught the first human mistake, but this step was unfortunately missed, which is the second error. Those two are not even enough, because those two errors, which happened one after another, were compounded by the way the election update was programmed. During the October programming update, the contracting firm used by Antrim took care to program the new tabulation files to allow Antrim to salvage the original ballots that were already printed, except for the ballots affecting the new school board race, which I believe were 3 tabulators. This is the only reason why any memory card that was mistakenly not updated could be uploaded for the unofficial tally.
Thank you. So what I'm trying to get at specifically, Mr. Polis, is how do we verify whether the mistake is made in the programming at the tabulator versus at where the memory cards are taken to? And so, and tell me, during the logic and accuracy, is that done? I mean, I know you run the stack of ballots through and then you print a slip up on the tabulator to make sure that it accurately counted the ballots. But is there a time then when the results are taken from the tabulator to the central location to make sure that that transmittance of the data is also done accurately too?
Best practice involves reviewing the results that are uploaded via the memory cards and comparing them to the results tape that are printed immediately upon polls close. And again, multiple copies posted publicly in the polling location and distributed to any poll watchers. And you verify that the results tape matches what has been uploaded. In this particular case, the first two errors happened, and because the system was told to accept memory cards from either one of those two projects, it allowed an upload from the September programming, even though it was expecting a memory card from the October programming.
Okay. And does the software that those cards are taken to at the central location, or if the data is transmitted via modem, the software at the other end that's receiving those data points, is that your software or is that someone else's software?
Yes, the software that resides at the central location is our software.
Okay. And then is it possible for that data to also be transmitted to other types of programming such as Excel spreadsheets?
So that system is designed as a standalone system, but those results obviously have to be transmitted to a central location at the state level and reported to the media. So there are several ways that election officials can generate results and reports. One of them is Excel, one is through PDF, et cetera, so that the unofficial results can be exported to the state, to the media, et cetera.
Okay, thank you. Other members of the committee want to ask questions? I'll share the microphone here. Okay, Vice Chair Lucido, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Polis. Are you still CEO of Dominion?
I am.
And Dominion stands for what? Is this just a name you gave it, or is there any?
It doesn't stand for anything. It's just a name.
Okay. Dominion Voting Services has been around 18 years. 2002, you opened up in Toronto, Canada.
We were formally incorporated in January 2003 in
2003.
Toronto, Canada.
You stood there for a couple years and then moved the operations to Denver, Colorado.
We moved our headquarters to Denver in 2010.
You're currently doing business in 28 states that you operate here in the United States?
Correct.
In those 28 states, approximately, well, let me go to this. Let's just deal with Michigan right now. You have you have a contract for each and every one of these units that you place in service in these counties in which the votes are taken?
I'm not familiar off the top of my head, but I believe we have a contract with the state, and then we very well may have separate contracts with counties. But I believe our original contract was with the state entity.
So the state of Michigan gave you a contract to go ahead and use, and I'm using your words now, what you said is, we supply machines. We do not run elections. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Those were your words, and the tabulator does the count for the votes. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that can be checked by hand counting the paper ballots. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So the software that you claim and the supplying of the machines, and this is very technical, and I need to get this so that we can clear up any ambiguity. Did you train individuals on what they're supposed to do when you put these machines or the software in service?
I was not involved, but that's typically what we do. We train county officials on how to use software.
Is there a manual that somebody who has, like, let's say, authority over the individuals that are working for them in the in the clerk's office can reference when there's a need to see how the training goes?
To the best of my knowledge, all of our manuals and user guides were submitted to the state on the original state contract and part of that process, and distributed from the state to the counties. And I know that many situations, the counties will generate their own user guides and manuals based on our materials.
So that I'm clear, when you enter into an agreement with the state of Michigan to supply your equipment, your machines, and your software, there has to be some kind of way to make sure that they're running the machinery correctly and the software correctly. Would that be fair?
That's correct.
All right. Do you charge a fee in the contract? And I don't really want to know how much it's none of my business, but do you charge a fee for that training?
If there was a fee, it would have been part of the original upfront purchase.
How long ago? I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't give you a chance to finish.
No, and on a county by county basis, counties are free to make their own determinations. Sometimes they get supplemental training either from state officials. Sometimes they get supplemental training as the need presents itself to the counties. That's not really something I'm expert on.
I understand, and I only want to limit your testimony to what you know. If you don't know, I'd like you to, and Mr. Chairman, through the chair, I would like you to give us at least to have your lawyer who's there present with you today, write down what it is that we're looking for so that we can supplement your testimony and get the information from your office. Is that a problem?
Oh, of course.
Thank you. So, because what I'm looking at is I buy something, I want to know how to use it properly so that I don't have it malfunction and or misfire or whatever the case may be. And I'm not real familiar with a tabulator nor the software that runs the same. But if these machines that are supplied to the counties to go ahead and make, or to the communities that are doing these tabulations of the votes, that software is unique to that machine. It's proprietary, right?
The software that resides on our tabulators is proprietary, and that is once we certify at the federal level, that's when we lose control of the software. It is transmitted from the independent certification agencies to the counties, and then it transfers into the county's chain of custody.
Is the memory cards that you put into the machinery, is that locked down that the memory card can't be manipulated and or distorted?
Right. So
if I wanted to get the memory card out of the machine, would that if we had to remove a memory card from the machine, could that be possible?
Sure. You'd have to break the seal during the election. I'm assuming you're asking during the election.
During the election, correct?
Yeah. So as I stated, when the machines are delivered to a polling location, they are the compartments by which the memory cards are inserted into the machine are both locked and sealed. We actually have 3 memory cards, and one of them is designed to be removed at the end of election day. So there is a definitive audit on the source code of the machine. Oh, sorry, not the source code, but part of the log on the tabulator when the tabulator door is open and when the cards are removed. And it is designed that it does not come out of the machine until the polls are closed. The seal is broken by the local poll workers, and the locks are unlocked.
So that we got a correct record, there's 3 memory cards. One is designed to be removed. The other 2, I'm assuming, based on what you're saying, but I don't want to assume anything, are not to be removed.
So one of them is designed not to be removed, and that is internal. And 2 of them are removable, and one of them is designed not to be removed, just in case somebody makes any allegation on the card that was removed, even though it's securely transferred by the local election workers, oftentimes accompanied by a sheriff. There's even, and by the way, they're encrypted and signed. But even on the allegation, you could compare it to the second memory card that is a redundant copy that is designed to be continue to be locked and sealed in the tabulator.
If I tell you that somebody removed a memory card where they shouldn't have, would you have backup software or alarm systems that would go off to report that type of behavior in your proprietary machine and software?
So if an allegation was made that one of the memory cards was removed, and let's just, for the sake of your example, say that none of the poll officials noticed it, or the bipartisan poll watchers noticed it, or any voter noticed it, there would be a record of it. And we also have the other card that's in the machine, and they would be off, and the machine will not let you continue if one of them has been removed.
Do you have any validation or way to validate whether a memory card was removed from these machines? Have you started your validation? I know that there was 3. I was reading some stuff, and it says that you do something before the election process, either your company or the clerk. During the election process, there's something done regarding, and then after the election process. Have you guys started, your company started to do an after-election audit as to what happened and look into what these allegations, because you so eloquently gave your testimony, and I appreciate that, trying to clear up any inconsistencies or ambiguity. Tell me, have you started now at this point, and have you completed your after the election process?
Right. So I will point back to what I mentioned in my opening statement. We do not run elections. We are not accountable for running elections. And as such, we do not run the test before the election, or we do not run the test after election. So every state has its own local rules. And quite often, there will be a public logic and accuracy test done before the election. Many jurisdictions will repeat that test after canvass is completed, and they will do a logic and accuracy test post-election. And then some jurisdictions take it a step further and do exactly what you are talking about, but they don't contract with us to do it. The whole idea is that we shouldn't be the ones doing it. The federal system that was put in place after the 2000 presidential election, with the creation of the EAC as a bipartisan commission that does their own accreditation of separate third-party labs that are accredited. The whole purpose of that is that no voter or stakeholder has to blindly trust any technology provider. So the test that you are asking is part of the local officials process and best done by an EAC accredited lab. I will say we have several customers, especially in light of the baseless allegations that have been levied our way in the recent weeks, that have contracted a variety of these EAC accredited independent test labs to do exactly as you say. And their checks are, there's various number of checks that they perform. And I'm certainly no expert at what they do, but the way I think of it is they are verifying that the software that was run in the election was unchanged, that it is in fact the same certified software. They can run a variety of forensic tools to ensure that what you're describing, if it did happen, they would know it happened. And they do that all independent of us.
How do I know as a voter, Mr. Polis, that I didn't have any irregularity of the software being manipulated? How can I be sure of that?
Right, it's a great question. So the fact that somebody has made an allegation is cause enough, in my opinion, to do a hand count audit and recount. And that has been requested in a number of our jurisdictions. And at the end of the day, you have to remember that the ballot box was secure and empty at the beginning of the day. And at the end of the day, there was a number of ballots that each voter deposited into that sealed and locked ballot box. Those voters and their eligibility were verified by the local poll workers under the watch of the local poll workers and bipartisan poll watchers. And those ballots haven't gone anywhere. They've been under secure control of the poll workers. So even the allegation in an environment of like we're seeing right now, which is unprecedented, it's, in my opinion, it's exactly why the Michigan Secretary of State's office is working with Antrim County to perform that hand count.
Did you provide any training films? And I know that you said training manuals, booklets, I think you call them, any training films that would physically give a video to or a link to a training film so that the individuals would learn properly how to utilize your machine and your software?
Sir, we provide a variety of training tools. I'm the original contract in the state of Michigan, I believe, was in 2017. We regularly rely on a host of different training techniques and design it in collaboration with the end customer, be it the county or state.
So that would have been with Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson. That would have been the one you would have contracted with? She was the Secretary of State in 2017.
I don't recall who we
I think it's 2017. Is that what she?
No, sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Vice Chair, but Jocelyn Benson's term began in 19.
19?
Yes.
Okay, 2019. The chair cleared it up. Could you tell me about the process, though, because you're still acting as a CEO, even though you just indicated, I think in your testimony, the majority of the company was sold?
Yes, in 2018.
Okay. And this was your company that you, from birth, basically. I'm going to say that you're the one that, did you design the software?
Not my birth, Senator. Company's birth.
Oh, could you tell me, did you design the software that went for this? Do you have, I mean, was it you or was it somebody else that designed the software, how to manipulate meaning the vote count and tally to make sure that there was consistency and to make sure that there was credibility?
Well, let me just be clear. We don't manipulate anything. All our software does is if you look at a tabulator from your home county, actually, I'm not sure if you're using Dominion in Antrim County, let's say. Our tabulator software looks at the paper ballot and we integrate the number of black pixels in the oval corresponding to a candidate's name. And that is designed in a way that the machine is interpreting voter intent the same way that a human being would. And so it's designed to be very objective. There's no manipulation of any kind. And yes, I do have knowledge of the source code that developed that.
The warranty, and I use the word warranty, I don't know another word, maybe you can help me, about post-elections to ensure the security and the trust of the election. Is there some kind of warranty that goes with that for the state when they purchase this unit and software? That it's going to act in a manner consistent with your statements as well as how you have the intended use of the unit?
We'll have to get back to you upon looking at the state contract.
If somebody didn't properly download software, would that change a result? And I'm going to every single item I can think of to see how these allegations, how these affidavits that we've taken from so many people across the state, I want to validate what they saw, what they looked at, what they heard, as opposed to what really happened. So if you weren't there, and I think there was representatives of Dominion at like the TCF Center, was there not? Is that standard and a customary in the industry of your machinery being placed into service to have people from Dominion there the night of the election?
Senator, you mentioned a few things. First of all, in terms of the affidavits and any pertaining to the accuracy of the tabulation, I am not aware of any that have been found to be credible, certainly none that I've seen, and I don't know of any judge that have found any of those allegations credible. With specific regards to whether or not it's normal to have on-site technical support from the tabulation companies, it depends. It's at the sole discretion of the county. And in the case of the TCF Center, we did have on-site technical support there. They are not part of running the election, and they are expressly there to answer any questions from the election officials whose job it is to run the election.
Was there a separate contract that was with consideration that was utilized as a result of coming to that election at TCF here in the state of Michigan?
I'm not aware of it off the top of my head. That's something we can get back to you on.
Is it, like I said, not normal, is it customary, let's use that word, not normal? Was there any other counties in the state other than Wayne that had assistance through Dominion being there? Meaning, do you recall, based on Michigan has been spotlighted and shown throughout the country, do you recall of any other county of the 83 counties in the state?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay. So the only one that you do recall is that there was support staff there from Dominion, correct?
In Wayne County, correct.
And the only,
I think so. As I said, I don't know, Senator, but that sounds right.
do you recall how many people that came from Dominion to assist in answering questions from election officials in Wayne County?
No, I don't.
Do you know what, I mean, is this customarily done? Have you seen this in your 18 years, I think, where
Yes.
people go, they do, right?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have any in Wisconsin or Pennsylvania, Georgia or Texas?
Sorry, one at a time. Georgia, yes. Pennsylvania, yes. Wisconsin, I don't know. Texas, I don't know. What was it? Did you mention another one?
Michigan, but you gave us an answer.
Oh, right.
Okay. And right now, is there a written report that was received from the individuals that were at the TCF Center on behalf of Dominion and working on behest of Wayne County?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Did they report back to anybody in the company to give information as to what these allegations were and what
Yeah, I don't know.
So, in conclusion, somewhat, how do you validate what has been tabulated if there's no system in place that you can run, or if there's no software that validates it other than hand count? Is there any other way to avoid a hand count from the software and the hardware that you put in service to validate this is the vote? This is true, accurate representation of the vote.
Well, first off, there is a very well-documented system, and it starts at the EAC level long before any system is sold, with third-party testing and accreditation. In this testing, Senator, these independent labs that are trained on election process, they go through every single line of source code, line by line. They test every facet of every feature of the machine under a lot of different permutations and combinations of elections. In addition to that, before that system it can be sold, for example, in the state of Michigan, it gets certified after a federal certification once again by the state authorities in Michigan. So to say that there's not a there's a very well-documented system that is extremely accurate.
I appreciate
the accuracy.
Wait a minute. I guess I'm asking something else. Even though they have, like they do like automobiles, they go through a check test. Like they check everything, check the boxes. But if we want like access control, only authorized individuals are running the machine. And I understand what you said. We don't run elections. Encrypted end to end so that no one can manipulate the data. And endpoints that hold the data, that those endpoints weren't breached. Could you be specific on what systems do you have on your software that can ensure that access control, encryption end to end, and endpoints that hold the data were not breached?
Fair question. So as part of the federal certification guidelines, there's very well and rigorously documented security requirements of the media where votes are recorded and translated. I think to your question in terms of a check after a car rolls off the assembly line. So our source code remains unchanged, and that is exactly what post-election activities should verify after every election. They check that the hash code is exactly the same as the certification hash code, and that gives the local officials the knowledge that the source code was exactly the source code that was certified and tested. The check of the actual election, because the programming, and this is not in the source code of the system, but this is now how you program an election because the candidates change, the contests change from election to election. This is what's done at every election. This is what the logic inaccuracy testing done in a public forum allows you to verify that it's correct and complete.
The ranked choice voting, is it the clerk that flips it or Dominion when they do the ranked choice voting?
There's no flipping of any votes at any time on any system. Ranked choice voting is something completely different that was not used in Michigan.
Okay. Then the last one then is the post-election activity should be verified. That was your statement. What post-election activity should be verified in our state?
My personal recommendation,
Yes, sir.
and which I've seen work in other states, is an authorized independent test authority accredited by the EAC should be doing exactly what you are looking for and verifying that the system was exactly used in a certified manner.
Did you make that recommendation to anyone here in the state at this time?
The state is the one that came up with it in the first place years ago. And I think that they've used it. I'd have to double check on the first time it was used, but it's not. This is a common practice.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll probably have some follow-up after I know that the other senators have questions.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair Lucido. And I just want to have a quick follow-up to one of the Vice Chair's questions, and then we'll take a little break, if that's all right with you, Mr. Polis.
Of course.
The Vice Chair was just mentioning the ranked voting, and you
ranked choice voting.
Ranked choice voting, and you've mentioned a couple of times in your opening and now that that's not an option that Antrim County had, but it is part of your programming, right? It is something that the software itself offers as an option that's used in some place.
Ranked choice voting is a requirement in some jurisdictions. It was not used anywhere in Michigan. And this is something that an independent test authority can easily verify, as can any election official. You need look no further than just the paper ballots, but there is a whole audit that an independent test authority can use to look and answer that definitively. Is
it possible for that option to be simply turned on accidentally, even or intentionally, but even accidentally? No. Is it possible that Antrim could turn that on? No, the answer is no. And even if they could do that, which they can't, it would not go undetected. And as I said, an independent test authority accredited by the EAC could easily determine that for you. Could you, and I don't want to do a lot of these all day where we get into the real technical weeds, but on this one, could you share with us why you believe that's impossible? What are the technical specifications that make that impossible for it to accidentally be turned on? Well, you don't need to look any further than the actual paper ballot. So if you knew what a ranked choice voting ballot looked like, you could see that there's different columns for each candidate where voters can select their first preference and then their second and third and so on. As I said, it's not certified for use in Michigan. It's not allowed for use in Michigan. It's not something that election officials can just turn on. And even if they could, it's easily detectable. Okay. At this point then, members, I'd like us to take a 10-minute recess and we'll come back. Mr. Polis, thank you. You have 10 minutes. Great. Thank you.